Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today we are responding to a Reddit post because I see this happen every once in a while. Teams, lower level teams looking for coaching, sort of expecting that they're going to be able to find a coach that will commit to as many hours as the players will while they're silver, gold, plat, masters, whatever team. And it's mostly just not going to happen. And since I had a thread here to respond to, I wanted to go ahead and cover this thread as an example to walk through the why. So what we're looking at here is we'll use this specific example, and this is a team that says, hey, gold to diamond team is looking for a coach. More info here. We've opened the here. We'll get to it in a second. I understand lots of coaches are already committed to teams these days. That isn't really the issue. The issue is that there are way more people who want to play a game. Let's get a color that isn't yellow. And actually, I recall you guys prefer if I put this on night mode, so let's go like this. The issue isn't that there's a lot of coaches that are already committed to teams. It's that there are way more people who want to play Overwatch than want to coach Overwatch. Like, that's just reality. And you'd find the same thing if you went into, hey, let's get a baseball team, a soccer team, a tennis team, a chess team, a football team. Like, if you look for people who want to do this activity for free, you're going to find there are many times more number of people that want to play soccer than want to commit to the amount of time it takes to coach a soccer team. Like, there are more people who will commit if it doesn't cost them any money to playing on a soccer team than coaching it. There's many more because there aren't enough coaches to go around for a full volunteer soccer team. Well, the same thing is true for Overwatch. And people really shouldn't view that differently. So this really shouldn't be news. Now, where you do find free coaches exist is up in tier 3. And the reason free coaches will exist in tier 3 is because it's more interesting to coach in tier 3, where you can go, hey, these are better players. Maybe these players are better than the coaches themselves, so they get to see the game away. They don't usually get to play it themselves. But also, it's a stepping stone to tier 2, which is a stepping stone to Owl, which is where you could actually get paid to coach. So it's not some, oh, goodness of their heart that they're doing it for free. It's they're using it as a progression ladder to go do it. And if they are doing it for fun, they're doing it either here, they're almost certainly doing it here. So unless you have some sort of like, hey, we're a team down in gold, down in plat, down in diamond, whatever, unless you have some with, we know this coach really well, someone on our team is dating this coach, something of the sort, you're not going to get a coach that has any level of belief in their own ability to coach, has any experience already doing coaching, to commit to 8 to 12 hours, to 2 scrims a week, to 4 scrims a week, to anything of the sort, to 2 scrims a week in VOD review, to 2 scrims a week in VOD review and individual coaching, to 1 scrim a week in individual coaching. You're not going to get that commitment for anything resembling long term. So please stop looking. I'm serious. Like, you're wasting your time by looking for this type of thing. If you want this type of thing, if you want coaches to go, hey, I want to go, we want you to come coach us for free multiple times a week. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to your local tennis club. Find that if you can. Go find the tennis pro and say, hey, I would like you to coach me multiple times a week for free. The answer is going to be no. Like, it is. And even if you go, okay, well, I don't need a pro, I need someone who's just better than me at it. The answer is still going to be no. They'll give you some advice. They'll tell you stuff right then and there about how to play better. Hey, it's all about, setting up your serve. You really need to win when it's your service game. You can do things like that. They might do things like that, but they're not going to, on a repeated basis, keep coming back and telling you things to work on and come watch you multiple times. Once or twice, sure. If you really have, like, hey, they owe you a favor, sure, you might get some time. Or, if we go back to the Overwatch world, it's someone's first time in the coaching scene, and they need to prove to themselves and others that they can do it before they go work with better teams. That you can get, but that's the unicorn, and that's not going to stick around very long. They're going to realize much faster than your team moves up that, oh, I am qualified to do this, I know how to do this, and then they're going to go off to the better team, or at least they should, because otherwise they will be sticking themselves there for way too long in something, and they will not make make it up in the time frames that they would have to. Remember, you have to spend a long time in tier 2 and a long time in tier 3 to move up. You don't necessarily have to spend a long time here, but doing well in these for one season doesn't necessarily mean that you'll move up to the next season, which would be tier 1, which would be Al, where you'll actually get paid if that is the goal. So you don't want to, as a coach, spend a lot of time down in sub tier 3. It's really not good for your career, because even if you go, I'm going to give myself 2 years to get to tier 1, you want to spend as little of that time as possible down in tier 4 or sub tier 3, whatever you want to call it, because you don't know how long, even if you're doing everything right, and I mean everything right, you don't know how quickly you'll move between these, because it's not fully based on your success. It's based on what openings are available here, what openings are available here, how good is your network to get into here, how good is your network to get into here. So like this is hoping for the unicorn. And if you get that unicorn, you get that person who it's like their first time coaching, they're figuring it out, so they're willing to coach your Plat team. That's great and good for you. That's fantastic, but you're not gonna hold on to them for very long, or if you do, it's a disservice to them. And you're not going to then find them again, because there are not enough of them to go around. So this might seem self-serving. This might seem like, oh, Temporal's just trying to drum up business for himself, saying coaches should be paid, and therefore this team should pay me. I don't care about this specific team. If this team wants to pay me and hire me, I guess they can, but I'm really not looking for that. I really don't care. I would be happy to say I'm never going to work with this team, because I just don't really care. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this as a more general, everyone should understand how the scene actually works, and that there simply are not enough good coaches to go around. Like, I want to be very clear, there are lots of 4.3 and 4.4 teams out there that would be perfectly happy to take a good coach with any level of proven track record that are running around in tier 3 without coaches right now, because there are simply, and these are the teams that you can actually from here maybe make it into, hey, get into trials, try to get into contenders, get some visibility to get onto a better team. These are the teams that are more interesting to work for free, and there's already not enough coaches for that, not enough quality coaches for that. You'll get players who have no track record, no proof whatsoever that they can do well, but a bad coach can be sabotaged. And that's why these teams, and even contenders teams these days, will sometimes run without a coach, because there has become an understanding that running with a bad coach is worse than running with no coach. So that's really what I wanted to cover here in sort of the general thoughts. Again, this is just something that I felt needed to be said, not because these guys in particular did something awful by looking for this, but you can see here that they've looked around through different Discords, they've gone to the different communities, and they're not finding it. And this is why. So I'm like actually just trying to save you guys some headache. Don't turn down offers for, hey, someone will come by and take a look at you once, or someone will come by and take a look at your support play, or maybe some other content creator will go, oh yeah, I'll take a look at you once, etc. Don't turn those things down while you're looking for this unicorn. You should absolutely take advantage of those things, and you should actually go, hey, those are all we expect to get. Like, if we can get one of those every 2 weeks, if we can get every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, maybe we go, hey, and we get, I don't know, one of the content creators, like we get a MCF to look at us for, happens to be willing to do it for free. He looks at one of our scrim games, and then 3 weeks later, maybe we get someone else like a Reels to look at one of our scrims, and then maybe you talk me into doing it. Again, I'm not particularly interested in this, and I don't do a lot of work for free. You have to just get lucky for me to do stuff for free, but there are content creators in the coaching world in their cycle who might be willing to look at you for free once type thing. So you're going to want to look for a combination of that type of thing and a combination of tapping your friends, tapping your network for, can you come by and look at us once and help us out and give us some direction? And you're going to want to train with that direction then for a couple weeks before going and getting new direction. And you guys are going to have to think as a team and work as a team to figure out your next steps, to figure out how to get better. Because if you're not willing to pool resources to, and this is the other option, hire someone once every week, once every other week to look at you for one block or for one VOD review a week or every other week or whatever the case may be, you're going to have to figure out how do we patch a solution together. That's how you actually do it if you're serious. If you're not serious, you just play together in scrim, rec league style, and that's great. And you don't need a coach for that. You might want to get better, but you just do that as a team, and you don't need a coach for that. Okay. things in here. We do see this. We're looking at this available Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 12. So that's 3 scrim blocks. That's 3 scrim blocks a week plus assist coaches in player development, lead practices, scrimmages, and tournaments. Leading scrimmages and tournaments, okay. Leading tournaments, do you want them to sign up for the tournament? Do you want them to lead the tournament? What does that mean? Because signing up for tournaments will generally be manager work or get the captain to do it. 8 to 12 hours, well, that's more than what we've put here in 3 scrim blocks. So that means individual VOD reviews or team VOD reviews plus meetings. People don't want to make time for that for a volunteer activity where they are highly in demand. Again, your coaches are much, much, much more highly in demand if they have any level of success behind them, any level of competency behind them, than your players do. Like, that's just reality. That's just how it works. And then the other thing here is what we are looking for in a coach. Peak SR of at least 3.5K. Stop it. Your team is 2.5K. You do not need a peak individual SR for your coach of at least 3.5K. Krusty's peak is in diamond. I have worked with other contenders coaches whose peak is lower than 3.5. I have also worked with tier 3 coaches who would have been qualified for contenders who were good enough whose peaks were in gold, maybe silver. Like, this is you don't need this. You don't need this. You don't judge coaches based on their individual SR. Asking a coach for their individual SR is like asking someone who's been in their career world doing stuff for 10, 15 years what their high school GPA is. They're going to politely walk out of the interview, or at least they should if they have any self-respect. You judge coaches based on how good were their previous teams in terms of like what level were they at? Were they a contenders team? Were they a 4.4 team? Were they a diamonds team? Whatever. And or how much better did their team get at over what pace while they were there? Did their team go from silver to plat while they worked with them for 2 months? Great. That's a pretty good sign. They can probably now go coach a diamond or a masters team. Did their team go from Masters to GM, great. They can probably now go coach a tier 3 team because, again, there's more hunger for good coaches than there are good coaches that are out there. That's how this works, and you judge coaches based on their success in coaching. You don't look for their SR. So you're already looking for a unicorn, and now you're like applying a strainer to this and going, even if there is some unicorn that doesn't know that they're a good coach that is willing to help us, maybe, they have to also be over 3.5K. Let me tell you, someone who's got an individual peak of over 3.5K is not going to start by coaching a plat team. They're not. They're not. They're going to start higher than that. But this also is just not what you look for. Okay, I don't mean to rip these guys apart specifically. They just had the Reddit thread, and the Reddit thread inspired the response. I see stuff like this all the time, and I think it would be helpful for the Overwatch community at large to sort of understand what the supply and demand of coaching versus players is out there at low levels. Again, even these 4.4, 4.3 teams that might be considered tier 3 don't have enough good coaches to go around. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and catch up on chat now. If people have questions, go ahead and throw them up in chat. If you enjoy this type of content, please do like and subscribe, as that helps me out quite a bit. Or if you want to get enraged about what I'm saying and respond to it, and you want to be here for these, that's great. Go ahead and join my Discord, and then in there through the get notifications role, you can go ahead and become a watcher, and then you'll get Discord pings whenever I go live for videos, which means you can be here to ask questions, to punch back, to do whatever you need to do in chat here. Okay. Offer money. You loved the response. There you go. There you go. Do you mean for service have to pay money? Yes. Yes, I do. You're welcome, Cockabim. I try to remember that you guys like night mode. People still play soccer. Well, not in America, but hey. Didn't a virus eliminate sports? Well, football, yes. But they will get paid in exposure. Right, the unicorn. Temporal, what ballpark would people have to be willing to pay for those things, like coaching time of 8 hours for scrim review? Yikes. So they said 8 to 12 hours. I mean, it's ultimately going to depend on what quality you're going to get and what individuals negotiate, but coaching in Overwatch, I mean, coaching in Overwatch from someone that actually knows that they can do it isn't going to really be found for less than $15 an hour. It's just not. Um, you might go on Fiverr or something and find someone who's willing to do it for $5 an hour, but I hope you can understand them and they will have no proof that they've done it well. If they have any proof that they've done it well, the rate is going to be higher. So if you're looking at $15 an hour and you want to sign someone for 8 to 12 hours a week and you're going, "Oh, well, it's a bulk discount because you're doing 12 hours a week or 8 hours a week or whatever it is." Not really, because that's just not a terribly high rate for what it takes to be good at this. For again, everything in the economy is based on supply and demand, and as we just explained, there's a much higher demand for coaching than there is a supply of coaches. So, yeah, there's less of a demand for paid coaching because, that's how it works. Demand falls off as the rate goes up, but there's still enough that I don't knock my rates down very far when someone buys, bulk packages with me. You guys can see what my rates are, for example, and I will do um, rates that are lower. Yeah, and I wouldn't even expect you'd find much lower than 15 for this, even if you went with questionable stuff, because gets into team coaching, and team coaching is an even rarer skill. More people have experience or have proven that they can do individual coaching or that they can do VOD review than can do team coaching, and I generally charge more for it, and so does everyone else. I don't charge as much more. Like, if you look at Hayes's rates are like 4 times as much for team coaching as they are for individual. I don't go that route. I charge more, but I don't apply a multiplier like that. But that's not super weird. And I can look at Jane's organization. Jane's organization is what, like $50 an hour for individual coaching versus $60 an hour for team coaching. So again, people like Jane, like Hayes, like myself, all have much better qualifications than what these guys are looking for here, but they're also I don't think you're going to find someone willing to do that for less than like $15 an hour unless you're tapping a favor, like tapping a serious favor. Okay. Is that 100 a week, 500 a week, 1,000 a week? I mean, I don't know. Let's just do quick math. So let's look at that. If we did 8 hours, if we did $15 an hour, which I would charge more than that, at 8 hours a week, that would be 120 a week. And I would expect that to be more because again, 15 is kind of a minimum for that. And that was 8, which was the low end of number of hours that they were looking for. But you could pool resources. If your team wanted to pool resources and do that, you could do that. You might be better served pooling resources to get someone more qualified to check in on you for 1 block a week of live coaching, or to check in on you for 1 VOD review every other week or something like that, just to give you the direction that you want your coaching or that you want your team to then work for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, something along those lines. And a good coach who will charge you more than $15 an hour for team coaching is probably going to look through it and go, okay, here's what your team needs to do. Here's this. Okay, we did our VOD review, etc. Based on this VOD review, this player needs to work on this. 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 And by the way, as a team, you guys should work on your call structure for this. Well, a better coach is going to do something like this where 4 of your 6 players got individual things to work on and you guys got a team macro thing to work on. That's frigging awesome. That's great. And that's why you go with a better coach like me. But I'm not really trying to shop my services for this particular coach, post, team, whatever. It's all about hourly value, blah. There you go. People got to pay rent. I don't understand how scrim team coaching thing works with time or money. Yeah, scrim coaching is a bit of a tricky one, and I don't advise scrim coaching to people that are on a budget. And the reason I don't advise scrim coaching to people that are on a budget is scrim coaching still takes 2 hours of a coach's time to do a scrim block, but the sections that they can give advice during are much more narrow. They can give advice between rounds. between maps. They can't pause and go point at things and go do that. Like, yes, you could in theory pause the game, but coach pauses get very, very frowned upon, especially at lower levels. Actually, as you get higher up into tier 3, into contenders, into owl, they get much more understanding of, we're going to take 10 minutes between this map for literally a coaching break. They get much more understanding. But at low levels where not everyone has coaches and where everyone thinks that, oh, more reps, more playing is the solution to getting better, teams get very unhappy. And I will go coach, live coach, silver scrims, master scrims, whatever, and you will watch the other team get antsy even when we just wait 5 minutes between rounds for me to explain a concept to people. And I don't go that long very often. You have to keep it pretty short. But even 5 minutes, which is not a terribly long amount of time, will get the other team antsy in lower level scrims. Again, masters is lower level. And say, can you do your coaching between blocks? Can you do your coaching after the scrim, etc.? Which, no, you can't, because people need time to actually implement what you're giving them. You're not going to spend like half an hour in a block doing coaching. You're going to be like, hey, I've got 2 minutes here between rounds. I've got 45 seconds here between rounds. I'm going to make 3 minutes here between rounds. I'm going to do 2 minutes here. I'm going to do 45 seconds here. And then when the scrim ends, I'm going to sort of do an overview. So like the coach doesn't get to do as much coaching in a 2-hour block, and it's actually harder coaching because they can't pause, they can't rewind, they can't go do stuff. They need to be solving stuff on the fly so that they're available to do it, and they have to decide what are the most important things to prioritize to feed in that time between rounds that they're going to use to do coaching. So this is like harder coaching that costs more, but you get less total coaching than you would in a VOD review per hour. There is no specific price point. The price is what you're willing to pay. The price isn't necessarily what you're willing to pay. The price is what the coach is willing to work for. Um, it's a combination of those. I mean, it's the usual supply and demand curve. I mean, I have seen some of the Northeastern University stuff, but I have no idea what went to the background outside of the scrims or what we saw. I don't know how much of my coaching for Northeastern University outside of what you guys see me sometimes do between rounds in live tournaments, because sometimes you see a little bit of my coaching there. But suffice it to say that in any coach that has actually taken ownership of a team, isn't just doing a little bit of coaching for them here and there, is doing coaching between rounds of in tournament official matches, etc. Is, or not between rounds, but between maps. You won't between rounds in a tournament. Unless you mean tournament rounds, you won't between like attack and defense because the coach can't talk then, but you will at between maps get to do coaching there. You will be doing scrim coaching, which I sort of just walked through. You will also be doing team VOD review, which might be a concept that the team needs to work on that you've taken, from their previous play over the previous scrims, the previous tournament match, whatever. You might do 1 or 2 of those a week, and then you might do a map concept as well. If you just need to train your team on, okay, we've struggled on this map, so let's talk through exactly how to run our way through this map. And then you're also going to break out for individual VOD reviews with players. Or you might break that down and go, hey, I'm doing a review with our tank line. So maybe I'm reviewing one specific tank player, but all of my tanks are here, or my starting tanks and my sub, or all of my supports are here, something like that. Or you might just go, I'm just going to work with the one tank or the one flex DPS or whatever that you're working with. So there's different ways to do it, but that's more what that would look like in terms of how you would split your time, as well as administrative stuff that you have to deal with. Do you have to deal with at university? Do you have to deal with recruiting stuff? Do you have to deal with administrative stuff because you don't necessarily have a team manager the same way, or maybe you've made your team captain do that? Do you have to deal with coordinating with another team? Do you have to deal with figuring out what your broadcast is going to look like? But then you're getting into manager territory. That's really exists in the collegiate world. That exists less in the Overwatch world. In the standard Overwatch world, that stuff gets handled more by a manager. Temporal, I'm grabbing coffee. Do you want anything? Thanks, Manny. I've got my water. I've still got some water here. I'm good. Thank you. If you want a random dude who hobbies Overwatch, you can expect to pay McDonald's wages, which is about what I'm saying. Yeah. What did I just jump into? Hey, Nard. Someone wants a free coach. Temporal is responding. Someone doesn't just want a free coach. Someone wants a free coach for 8 to 12 hours a week. This is not Plat Mercy. It shouldn't say Plat Mercy. Oh. Whoops. Let's change our title here. Um, uh, I'll probably retitle that again, but let's do that. Thank you. Okay. Let's go back up here. Okay. Hi, we need free coaching. Thanks. Thanks, Adam. Thank you. Thank you. This is good info as someone who has been coaching for 3 years. No problem. Yeah, and if you have question there, Salak, about like how to move up the coaching scene or where you should be spending your time, I can potentially answer that. Those would be good things to ask. That would seem related to this. Usually you would have to catch me with a ask temporal for those, but this is a related one, so I'll probably answer. So what you're saying is that if I give you all of the money, you'll make me top 500. Well, maybe. What was my peak then, Scarf Deity? My peak SR. Let's see, what's a number that you guys won't believe? My peak SR was 302. Right there. That's my peak SR. Okay. Um, The scarf peaked at 5,001. Could have went with that one as well. Yeah, I had a silver say I can't coach them with my 3.5 peak. It's infuriating. It's laughable. It's laughable. 3.4 peak, but it doesn't matter. Like, and again, I wouldn't care if your peak was, if they're silver, I wouldn't care if your peak was 1900 or 1400. Now, the reality is you probably could force your way higher if you have a high level understanding of the game, but there's limits. You might not be able to force your way, even if you have a owl level understanding of the game or a GM level understanding of the game. You, as your play, you might not, without investing serious time into trying to get better at playing the game rather than coaching it, you might get into a situation where you can't get your peak above, I don't know, 2,500, 2,300, 1,800. I don't know. Like, I'm just making up numbers here. Like, I'm not totally making these up, but like, there are different skills and you have to practice the skills to get good at them, and coaches don't do that. Yes, my peak is higher than all of these. I'm going to pretend I didn't say that because I like to let you guys think that my peak is 300. Yeah, my peak is 300. There we go. I just got a new job that pays 75K per year, experience per year, plus benefits, free water bottles. Free water bottles. There you go. Currently homeless and starving, but at least I've got a lot of experience. 75K experience. There you go. Uh, he's wearing the green scarf and hulking out. I'm generally curious what Scarf Deity's peak is. 300 and what? 5, 1? I don't know. I said some number there. $15 per hour minimum is an awesome ballpark. I had no idea what they really went for. Yeah, and you can expect it to be higher. Like, I don't always like leading you guys to my competition, but I did just give you the price rate of Jane's org, for example. I'd rather get the $5 an hour coach and save up for super expensive gaming chair and mouse, which is much more important to improve than coaching. There you go. Don't forget, when you buy a review, it's a personalized product. That makes it all the more worth it. Perhaps it's a bit too broad of a question, but how does one approach learning the game to teach coach it? It seems overwhelming to learn how multiple characters work, not even considering macro yet. Well, what do you mean by learning how multiple characters work? Do you mean learning how multiple characters work, like learning all of Doomfist's rollouts? Because you don't need to learn all of Doomfist's rollouts to get your feet wet. Do you mean learning all of Hammond's techs? Because again, you don't need to know all of Hammond's techs, or exactly how to do primal mechanics, or exactly all of the different ways that you can increase the odds of landing a shatter. Like, you don't need to know all of that stuff to get your feet wet in coaching. If you're learning out of coaching, you do need to know what all the abilities do. You do need to sort of know how the game works, but then what you do is you'd go, hey, get a general understanding probably of the poke, dive, brawl triangle, get a general understanding, and most of the stuff you'll just already have because you've played the game enough. Get a general understanding of what engagement timing looks like, get a general understanding of how alt banks work. Um, and then it's really going to get into learn the specific meta that you're in. Learn the specific meta that you're in, which is probably in most metas going to quickly turn into a mirror, and you need to learn the mirror. And if you're early in the meta, you might need to learn the competing stuff in the meta that isn't quite meta, but is a little off meta, and might be part of what's driving the meta to be what it is, and what causes those things you need to learn. Why are the other teams not one tricking this over here or this over here? Oh, it's because if this meta comp swaps one hero, it totally shuts it down, and then this comp would have to swap 4 heroes. And then you learn more about the game as you realize, oh, that's why does this one hero swap do this? Or why does this changing the way of play do this, etc. So if you learn from one meta and sort of work your way up from a macro perspective, it becomes pretty easy. And I actually think it's easier to learn the game from a macro perspective, but this could just be how my brain works, and then go over to learning the micro from there. You don't need to know all of the heroes perfectly to understand it from a macro perspective. And once you do, you'll get a much better understanding of what individuals should actually be doing. And you can surf a long ways on, hey, even if you don't know exactly every single tracer tech, exactly what jumps are possible for her to half blink, and if she's here, if there's a thing here and she blinks and she's halfway up and she ends up here after the blink, you don't need to know every single thing like that to be able to coach tracer players in a team environment, because it's much more important that they hit the timing properly, that you've properly set up the engagement, and that's a team-wide thing. So learn the meta you're in would be my advice if you're trying to work as a coach there. I saw a post on Elo Hell Discord. Guys wanted a contenders or Owl coach and 5 players, but they had to also cover the Owl buy-in cost to move into his house. I think, wait, Elo Hell Discord wanted a contenders or Owl coach and 5 players, but they had to also cover the Owl buy-in cost. Oh, okay, that sounds like a troll. Yeah, that sounds like a troll. Well, at least you upvoted him. I did. Thanks for explaining everything, Temporal. I'm sure anyone who views this will get much better understanding on what they're really asking for, as well as minimum prices when it comes to Overwatch coasting. No problem. Thanks for wearing a scarf. That makes everything so easy to understand. You're welcome, Adam. Do coaches have to deal with drama, intra-team toxicity much? Yes. The reality is, as a coach, especially as a head coach, you have a big part of being responsible for your team's culture. And if you're responsible for your team's culture, you have to deal with that stuff. Now, sometimes that means let people brawl it out a little bit. Because remember, you won't be there. You won't be in their comms during the actual tournament play. So sometimes the right answer is, I have to let them solve this. In fact, I might even have to instigate this to get it solved. Now, that doesn't always mean pouring fire on it, but sometimes it does. At other times, it might be, I'm going to squash this, I'm going to stomp this out, but now during our post-scrim, before we go into another scrim, or instead of a VOD review block, I'm going to pull this back out and make us deal with it. And I might not be like, this is exactly how it's going to work, this has to be our solution. I might just go, we have to solve this. Okay, so, and you might facilitate the discussion. You might make sure the discussion happens. You might make sure it gets brought to a conclusion. But you absolutely do have to get those things dealt with, yes. That can be very, very challenging, though, I have to be honest, for new coaches or for coaches who get brought into already existing teams, especially if they aren't given roster control. Like, if you get brought in as a coach to a team and the manager is the players are the valuable pieces, not the coach, and the manager just decides, I'm always going to side with the players, I'm always going to side with the players, I'm always going to side with the players, and they own the spot, or if a player owns the spot, which isn't supposed to be able to happen, but has effectively happened in ways before, you can run into situations where the coach is hamstrung, and then they have to decide, I don't actually have the tools I need to work in this environment, so I need to move on to another team, or I just need to suck it up and let this be and hope that they can win through this. But you're not really doing the job. You just have to go, hey, I can't coach, and move on in most of those situations. Because you literally can't, if you don't have the authority to bench people, the authority to do any of this, the authority to get someone off the team, the authority to do whatever, you end up in a situation where all you can do is make sure the conversation happens. But if the team goes, we're going to bench, we're going to kick out, we're going to completely blame this player whose fault it actually isn't, you can't really do your job. And those things happen. That's just the reality. Everyone's trying to get ahead in this world. Okay. Maybe if Krusty grinds Overwatch, he could get a 3.5K and then be good enough to give free coaching to this Plat team. There you go. There you go. When you click for gameplay review, instead get a review of this scene. I was catfished. I think I'm catching up on chat now, but yes, that was a case of I have since renamed the stream. Temporal 7K peak. Yep. Can I message you on Discord? I've been going at it for years and have a few Patreon supporters. I have been lurking for a while. I'd do anything to do this stuff full time. Sure, you can message me. I mean, there's only you can message me on Discord. I don't know how much I'll be willing to give you in terms of guidance, like, oh, let me lead you all the way through, etc., without going, okay, let's figure out something to do this. But I can certainly respond to a couple questions, sure, and I can give you a little guidance. I just don't know that I'm willing to become your mentor, if that makes sense. I have people that I do that for already, and I don't need more. But without getting paid. When getting paid, it's totally different. But yeah, you absolutely can ask me, and I'm happy to answer a few questions for you. And then if it really keeps going, I'll say, hey, we've got to figure something out. But yeah, feel free to ping me. What about the exposure? He responds on Discord all the time. It's true. How would he stop you from messaging him on Discord? I could block him. Message him so luck gets you destiny. You and Temporal will merge and form a super coach. There you go. There are two scarves. It's true. I left my Plat team recently, and one of the reasons was the coach started smurfing in our team, and I didn't agree with it. More people that want to play the game than coach the game. What is the most common beef that forms in Overwatch teams that needs to be squashed that you've noticed in your team experience? That's a good question. I'd say the most common one, and I don't even know that it needs to be squashed because sometimes it needs to be hashed out, is the team forms, and this can be a very high level team, and as time goes on, people get to different levels of effort that they want to put into it. Where it's like, okay, it started and everyone wanted to put the same level of effort in, but as time went on, these four decided that they wanted to put near maximum effort into it, and these two started putting less effort in. And that sort of becomes well, what is the plan here? Can we get these two back to a level where they want to put more effort in? Do we need to not do that so that these two don't burn out before the season's over and then potentially replace them or see if they're better after a break for the next season? Like, that probably becomes the most thing where players get, hey, they're investing different levels of effort in that. And I'm sure many of you have seen that in the workplace where some employees work much harder than others, but on a small, like, 6-person team, that becomes a problem. It's not so much that, like, hey, this player is better than this player over here. It's not so much that. It's how much effort is being played. Like, if this player is falling behind the team and they're not putting time into practicing and they're going out and doing a bunch of stuff and, they're sleeping in and almost missing stuff, that it becomes an issue. I know almost every beef revolves around losing too much or someone feeling that they don't get enough credit, but that's it. That's not all. Sometimes losing too much, I mean, yes, winning solves almost everything. And you'll notice that we saw with American Tornado, it was super interesting, and that's why I was interested to watch. American Tornado had been winning for a long time, and once they took that first loss, they didn't like completely fall apart and become a nothing team, but you'll notice, oh, hey, it's not all paradise anymore. They didn't then become the number 2 team, or maybe they did, but they fell a little bit in their competition level because winning fixes a lot of issues. Winning hides a lot of mistakes. Winning makes a lot of people happy. And I don't mean to knock on American Tornado too much. That's a player-led team that has did an amazing job, and they're not by any means a bad team now. They stayed in contenders. They're fine. Maybe they are the best team. Maybe they are the second best team. Whatever you want to do there. Okay. Kongaboom with the super chat. Can you explain to me how I lose 3 games in a row on my gold account, then swap to my plat account and win 2 games in a row? My prank is backwards. I can. I can't explain that. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Kongaboom. So what's happening there is 2 things. There's 2 possibilities, or there's probably more than 2, but there's 2 main possibilities. First off, Overwatch does have some level of chance to it because you're playing in a matchmaker and there are 12 people in a lobby and you are only one of the 12 people in the lobby. So there is some level of, hey, unless you are massively outperforming the lobby, and I mean massively outperforming the lobby, you're going to lose some games. And I do mean massively, because you will see people that are 4K plus players that will intentionally be in a silver lobby that still lose a game that they were trying to win. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens. And that's a 3,000 SR difference, and they can't force the win out of that game. So there is some level of, hey, this is just how the chance sort of goes, the randomness sort of goes of there's some games that are going to be very, very challenging to win, even if you're much better than the lobby. And you're not much better than the lobby. You're one tier. You're one tier, which isn't really that much above the lobby. So that's something that can happen. The other possibility is you are not quite playing to the reaction. Like you can end up in these situations where you go, I don't want to say plat lobbies play in a certain way and bronze lobbies play different and gold lobbies play different, but there is something to those lines where there's things that you can do, and I did this with a Lucio example lately, where I went, hey, if a Lucio just sits near their Reinhardt on the wall on speed in plat, the Reinhardt is going to correctly in plat do good things with that speed. So that's going to get more value for them. If Lucio in silver sits on speed near their Reinhardt, the Reinhardt is going to do silver Reinhardt things, going to get very little benefit from speed, and it's just not going to work out. That doesn't mean that Lucio speeding their Reinhardt is wrong. It's just that the Lucio's understanding of when to use speed was incomplete. Yes, this is a good place to use speed, but you still need to use the speed at the timing when your Reinhardt is actually going in or pulling out. If you just do it constantly, your plat Reinhardt is going to take better advantage of it than your gold Reinhardt or than your silver Reinhardt, so you might win more in plat by doing this. The real answer is to actually get your speed timing right and be on heals the rest of the time. You can run into very similar things on McCree, where you might have, say, a certain cadence to when you go on your flanks, and that cadence is working better for you in plat than it is in gold, where it's like, okay, I go on my off angles, I open my off angles at this timing. I open my off angle 35 seconds into the match on King's Row, for example. Well, that might be the right timing in more of your plat games than it is your gold games, because it's not actually a, oh, you're supposed to open it at this timing. It's a, you're supposed to open it when certain conditions have been fulfilled. You're supposed to be looking to open it as your tanks are advancing, and your tanks just happen to hit that timing better in plat, the timing that you've internalized, whether it's right or not, better in plat than they do in gold type thing. Or the plat fight is a little bit more organized, and that causes flankers to show up on you a little bit less, and you do a little better when the battle lines are a little more drawn than they are in gold. Like, I'd have to look at the specific match, but it's generally going to be one of those 2 things. Either just, hey, this is how chance works sometimes, or you're doing things that are adjusted to a plat environment that don't work as well in gold, but you're not actually doing them perfectly. It's not like, oh, I'm doing these so much better and therefore I'm in plat. It's what you're doing is something that happens to hit plat's timings better, but you need to have a better understanding or a better training of the actual specific of why you're doing it. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. I think one of the most common is loud people blaming quiet people for everything that goes wrong. I don't know about that. Some games aren't winnable. Mostly true. And they feel grandfathered in by the old guard. You rolled a 1 3 times. Okay. Critical loss. Temporal, I'm a 27-year-old man. I'd expect nothing free from you. Even your replies here on stream have been appreciated. No problem, man. 27. Wow, fresh out of diapers. Get off my lawn. Yeah, blah. We might be a little older than the general Overwatch community, but it sounds like Slack here is as well. I see. So I have to swap to Lucio Speed, my Rhine, and then everything will be better. Yes, that makes sense. Okay. I think that's going to do it. I think we've discussed this one enough. If you guys have any final things, go ahead and throw them up there question wise into chat now. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as that helps me out quite a bit. And, as a final reminder, if you want to be here live to discuss these things in the future, the best way to do that is to become a watcher. You join my Discord, you can do that for free, and then you react in the Get Roles place to become a watcher. Then you get pings when I go live, and you can be here for interesting discussions like this. Okay. Uh, where we get to talk about beef, it looks like. Thanks, guys.